Hey there. I promise I will only do this once this semester unless I get requests for it, but my plan is only once. I'm going to compare something that we're doing in class with a recipe. I'm only going to do it once. I'm not going to get all, everything is like cooking. I'm not going to make that metaphor with the assignments. I'm just going to do it once. And I'm going to do it for talking about proposals. So, what's the function of a proposal with an assignment like what we're doing for Artifact 1? The function is to give you a plan so that you can go and do it confidently, right? You've already got something in place so that when you show up to do the thing, you've got process, you've got guidelines, you've got the work that you've put together for what you need to do. Now, if you've done something a bajillion times, like riding a bike or liking something on TikTok or making a certain food, you know that after getting a certain amount of repetition, you kind of let some of the step-like thinking fall away. So for me, there's the thing that I make, black bean and pumpkin soup, that it's kind of a go-to for me. I don't really need to think about it as I do it. I have muscle memory for it, so to cook it, I just cook it. So I'm just cooking it right now. I've got half an onion or an onion, whatever's sitting around. That's starting to saute. To that, I'm gonna add the very cute vegetable bouillon cubes. Probably got 3 of those going in. Some ginger, dehydrated ginger. Minced garlic, and just kind of, I eyeball it. I've done this a billion times. So in that goes. Next, some fire roasted tomatoes I found in my freezer with tomato paste. Give it a stir. And then you just let that hang out for a minute. Hanging out. Right? So if you know how to make things and if you're comfortable with the thing, there's less prep work that goes into it. Like it's just kind of something that you know to do. If you're making something unfamiliar, like for example, I'm going to make a chocolate lover's mug cake from the microwave. I have not made this before. I'm gonna make it. It has instructions on the recipe. So put this in the mug, add 3 tablespoons of water or milk, then microwave it, and then let it cool. So that's what I'm gonna do. The twist on this is I'm not gonna follow the instructions completely as they are. So there's all the mix. And since we're doing pumpkin spice week, I've decided I'm making this a chocolate lover's pumpkin spice cake. That's what I'm doing. So that's probably like a 1/4 teaspoon of the pumpkin spice blend. And then, so it takes 3 tablespoons of water. Let's do 2. And then a tablespoon of pumpkin. Generous tablespoon. Put that in, start mixing it up. Yeah, so I will eyeball eyeball this and hope that there's enough moisture coming from the pumpkin. It's quite pasty. Pasty with a P, not a T. Add a little bit more water. Nothing like making something you've never made before on camera and then having the aspiration that you're going to still try it before the end of the video. Okay, and I have washed my hands and I'm the only person eating here, so everything is fine with me using my hands while I cook. Pretty good. I like that. Okay. So how long do I cook this? 1 minute, 10 seconds. All right. So why bother comparing a proposal to a recipe? You're gonna have to do a lot of proposal type documents in your career field, whatever that ends up being. So it's not a bad idea to get in the practice of doing them for projects. It gives you a step-by-step outline of what you're gonna need to do the project. So it tells you what to do. You put the work into building it so that you tell yourself what to do. It's a great thing. It's a great thing. It's the difference between having the paper started the night before or doing things along the way for process work to get the paper done. So that's what we already started doing with our first Padlet on the map, and then building with the poem reflection, and then the Bloomsbury exercise. All right, let's check out this cake. It looks a bit wiggly. I'm gonna give it maybe 10 more seconds. That's the thing about recipes, and that is also the thing about proposals. They're not set in stone. They give you a really good place to start from, but sometimes you need to adjust. So if something goes on your proposal that isn't going to end up staying in what you want to do in building for the map, that's okay. That's okay. Proposals don't mean that it's written in stone. Proposals mean that you're proposing this idea and it will change as needed. Okay, so my cake is not wiggly anymore in the parlance of Great British Bake Off. It's a right mess and likely to have a soggy bottom. All right, cool for 2 minutes before enjoying. Well, I don't need to open it to set the timer. So as that cools, I'm gonna keep doing stuff over here and talk a little bit about coffee bouginess that was started in the previous video. So, is there irony in me, a nice white lady, making a video about cultural appropriation and pumpkin spice lattes while making it at home, in my home, with my espresso machine and my coffee from Nespresso, which is a very expensive brand of coffee in pods? Like, let's talk about that. Well, do I have privilege? Yes. Am I bougie? Yes, these things are true. Does buying coffee and buying an expensive coffee machine, does that like really encompass all of my belief systems about ways of being in the world that add to the idea of pleasure? Uh, Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I'm aware that coffee is not farmed under great conditions or even good conditions for the most part. I'm aware that these little pods, even though Nespresso allows you to recycle them by sending them back, and then there's artists that work with these and they make really interesting public art out of the recycled pods. Like, is this still something I should be doing? Probably not. Probably not. I probably also should not eat meat. There's things about lots of different parts of our food system that I personally make choices in my everyday life about that don't align with my daily values. So what do you do? What do you do with that? You've got at least two options, probably more. The first option is you can sit there and you can feel guilty about it and then stop. That's the problem with guilt. Guilt paralyzes us. Guilt creates shame. Shame creates trauma. This is not my idea. This is not my sentence. This is a common phrasing in, especially now, thinking about anti-blackness and what somebody like me, a white person, what my role is in terms of perpetuating or working against anti-blackness, right? Like I can get all guilty and I can get stuck in my feelings, right? Because guilt leads to shame, which leads to paralysis. I can do that, or I can recognize, yeah, my consumption of things like fancy coffee, chocolate, right? These food items that come at the cost of exploitation of other humans, right? That's the way that is. Just putting some beans in here now. I can recognize it and I can work to make better choices, and I can own up to my choices, right? So I'm not going to pretend that every act of buying a food item that does not add to the kind of world I want, I'm not going to act like I don't contribute to that. I totally do. But I'm also not going to let that paralyze me from operating within the world, right? We need to find some kind of a balance. So it's not like there's a karmic diary of like, well, if you make one vegetarian meal today, then that makes up for the fact that you bought cheap chocolate cake mix that probably was made in a factory with also not great working conditions, right? There's not a karmic diary to keep track of these things, at least not one that I've seen. And so this is not a shrug off to ethics about drinking coffee or food choices or things like that, but I did want to acknowledge that, yeah, it's a pretty bougie thing to do, to be talking about cultural appropriation with the pumpkin spice latte and then not talk about the role of coffee in all of colonialism, right? And all of the horrific experience of colonialism and genocide and enslavement. All right, mug cake. Is this what it looks like? Looks like a chocolatey cake. It's very steamy. I don't know if you can see how steamy it is. Do you see all that steam? Okay, this is really good. This is really good. If you are ever at Big Lots, pack of 4 for $1, which is also where I get my cans of pumpkin, almost 2 pounds for $2. Works for me. Works for me. So my soup's just about done. I've got some cake. I'm gonna make some coffee, and then I'll meet you back over in the other room to navigate Bloomsbury together. Bye.